the power elite, no other than Mr. Michael C. Anderson.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Michael, and welcome to Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yes, I am a historian and writer. I've published 5 books about contemporary American politics. I started writing about 20 years ago, and the first of my 5 books was published in 2017. Uh, my first 3 books are about basically the differences between right and left and how their behavior is influenced by genetics because they have very different views of the world. My second of the 3 was called Tribalism, which was published in 2019. Tribalism, the Curse of the uh, 21st Century. And in that book, I talk about the fight between the left and right for political control of the country. Um, and we're going to talk about my fifth book today, which is a little bit of a departure from the other 4, which again were about left right differences. The fifth book is about the billionaires and how the billionaires control our country. Um, the country was built obviously on the foundation of the Constitution, which gives grants rights to American people. And one of those rights is to be able to vote in elections and elect officials that they approve of and want to represent them. Um, lately, well, I shouldn't say lately. And it's actually we have to go back in time because as long as human beings have had governments, there has been influence exerted by rich people on the government. Uh, People first acquired wealth by owning land, and we're talking I don't know 7,000 years ago. But when you acquired land, you could produce wealth, and wealth got people influence and power over government. So when you look at the history of governments, you see monarchies and aristocracies that were mainly uh, managed by rich people. The United States is no exception. The founders were wealthy people, but they were not interested in exploiting the American people, in my opinion. They're interested in creating a foundation for freedom in a new country. And so that's why they wrote the Constitution. Um, Ever since that time, the wealthy have had influence over the government. And in my opinion, lately, namely last 20 years or so, it's gotten worse to the point where people have very little influence over the government. Um, the wealthy, rich billionaires, and I call them the power elite. That's the subtitle of my book. The power elite is a group of billionaires who are interested in politics. Obviously, there are billionaires that aren't interested in politics. They just ride around their yachts and travel on their jets and do things like that. But the power elite wants to exert influence over the government, and it has two. They have two purposes in mind. One is to increase their wealth, and the other is to keep the American society stable, so their wealth is not threatened. Because if their wealth is threatened, they could possibly lose their wealth. Obviously, so how do they influence the government? They first of all participate in government. They if you look at the executive branch and the heads of all the departments, like the Treasury Secretary or the Secretary of State or Secretary of Commerce, whatever, these are all wealthy people, and they have very similar resumes. They all went to elite universities. They probably worked as consultants. They may have been elected officials. They worked for major corporations, et cetera, et cetera. So their reputation was built on accomplishments as wealthy people, and so that lines them up to get positions in the government that are important and influence the government. The second way that uh, the billionaires control us is through corporations. The richest families in the country exert undue influence over the major corporations of our country, the international corporations, because they either own them or they participate in them on the boards of directors, or they own stock in those companies. So there is a partnership between large corporations and rich people to work together to keep the wealthy uh, on a path of increasing their wealth. Um, so they influence because they influence through the advertising that corporations do. The billionaires don't advertise themselves; they have representatives that advertise for them. But corporations basically uh, take two lines of advertising. One is they do ads to promote their products, obviously, but they also uh, promote the idea that America, everything is good in America, our economy is healthy, and we don't have anything to worry about. Um, the third way that billionaires influence government is they influence elections because they're the ones that fund the candidates that are running. And so they have a stake in picking the candidates that they think will win. And so they put money into the campaigns and then hope to get their candidates elected. Um, Here's a scary statistic. I don't know how old this is, maybe 2, 3 years old. Um, if you're running for Congress and you spend more money than your opponent, you have 90% chance of getting elected, which tells us that money buys elections. And it buys elections because the candidate that's seen most often by the public, which influences their opinion of that candidate, is the one that's going to get elected. So those are the three, I guess, legs of the chair that the billionaires use to influence us. They also control the media. The traditional media is controlled mainly by the left, but the media in general is controlled by corporations. They own them. There's seven major uh, media companies in the United States. They're global, and they all work together for the mutual benefit of all. So um, they broadcast what they think we want to hear to tell us that the country is healthy. And they also tell us, they broadcast information that they want us to believe, whether it's true or not. Um, they they broadcast the fact that corporations are legitimate and honest. They don't make mistakes. They don't do things wrong. They don't break the law. But again, it's propaganda. So um, the American people have very little recourse in influencing the government at this time. There's a statistic I can cite. Somebody did a study and they compared um, the degree of influence that various groups have on government action. And for example, if the billionaires support a bill that's being considered in Congress, it has a 90% chance of passing. If the bill is not necessarily supported by billionaires, but it's supported by lobbyists who are mainly uh, employed by billionaires, it has a 56% chance of passing. If a bill is supported by the public and not supported by the billionaires, it has a 3% chance of passing. Now, that doesn't apply to all the bills that are passed by Congress because obviously there can be issues that the public is interested in and the billionaires are interested in. So its ability to be passed increases because the billionaires are interested in it. So, we're stuck in this situation where uh, this enormous federal government is controlling our lives without us having much say in how that comes about. Um, the last and only power that the people have is the power of the ballot box, because if the people got together, they could defeat the corrupt system of campaign financing and elect new candidates. But there's a problem with that because about 40% of the American public does not vote. They're not interested in elections. And then another fairly large percentage um, don't really don't do the right research that they need to do to make their vote correct. Ideally, in the founders' minds, every voter would do research and decide which candidate fit their own philosophy and who they felt would do the best job. But people don't do that. They vote according to how they're told to vote by others when others influence them. And so we end up with the wrong people being elected. If the American people could get together and throw out the incumbents, it would be a wonderful thing because then the elected politicians would understand that their power is limited by their ability to satisfy the people. They don't care now because they know that they can just stay in office as long as they want, enrich themselves, make themselves millionaires, and they don't really care whether they take care of the public or not. So the only way that's going to change is if the people rise up and replace the corrupt politicians with new ones who understand their responsibility to the public. That's basically what the book is about. I call it counterfeit democracy because everybody talks every day in this country about we have a democracy and it involves the rights of the people and their ability to elect officials, and that does that doesn't really happen because the people have never made it happen. So it's counterfeit because it's not a true democracy. It's a billionaire run oligarchy, I guess I would say.
Mr. Michael Anderson, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world. So, how do you define the power elite and why it is understanding their influence crucial to understanding democracy today?
Well, you have to, I mean, you have to understand what the elites are trying to do in order to understand how they have to be defeated. Because, like I said, they have control of the government, and unless the people take it back, they're going to keep control of the government. So you have to understand how little power as a voter, how little power you actually have, and that the voters have to get together. They have to unite around a common cause to elect people who are responsible to them rather than people that don't care about them.
So, can you share a specific historical example discussed in your book that illustrates the idea of democracy being counterfeit?
Um, well, it's counterfeit because, as I said, a true democracy is defined by the people voting. And the people voting in a way that elects officials that are responsible to them. So the irony in the case of the United States is we have free elections. We go to the voting booth or polling place and we vote, but our votes don't have any effect because we keep electing the same people. And the only way to change the way the government operates is to elect new people who are responsible to us.
Certainly. So, Mr. Michael, what common misconceptions about American democracy does your book challenge?
Well, it challenges the fact that we're a democracy, we actually have never been a democracy. The founders never used the word democracy. It's not in the Constitution because the founders called our form of government a republic. We're like the Roman Republic. At least we started that way. We've become more of a democracy ever since then by changing laws that allowed more people to vote, more different groups to vote because originally women couldn't vote and then they were given the vote later. But the fact that we have the appearance of a democracy through voting, like I said, doesn't mean anything unless our votes mean something that they can influence and change government.
In your research, what evidence did you find most surprising regarding the influence of elite on US politics?
Well, I guess the most surprising thing is how broad the control is, how much influence the wealthy uh, exert on the politicians and the American society without the society being able to respond to that influence and affect change.
So, Mr. Michael, how do actions or influence of the power elite affect ordinary American citizens in their everyday lives?
Well, they influence all government actions, so they influence the programs of the executive branch. They influence the Congress through lobbyists so that the Congress passes laws that are more favorable to rich people than the average American. They don't address issues that are important to Americans: poverty, homelessness, all those things. They pretend like they really care about those things, but they never really accomplish what they say they're going to do. For example, uh, the city of Los Angeles has spent $10 billion in the past, I think it's 8 or 9 years, to cure homelessness. Not one person has been removed from a homeless environment there. I mean, whatever solutions that they were proposing were never implemented because of red tape or corruption or whatever. The homeless population is actually much larger. It gets larger every year, so it's obvious that they're not doing anything to solve the problem.
So, Mr. Michael, how have recent political events or elections highlighted the concept described in your book?
Well, it's interesting because you could call the election of Donald Trump a change of course because through a combination of his redefining the Republican Party and the mistakes the Democrats made got him elected. He is actually a counterforce to the billionaires because even though he's a billionaire himself, he does he does not buy into the establishment philosophy of the parties in Washington. He wants to change things. They don't want to change things. They want to keep the status quo and keep enriching themselves. So that's why people hate Trump. Even his biggest adversary is the Republican Party because the Republican establishment wants to control the Republican philosophy. And if he has influenced the American people as a Republican, then they don't have any influence and they don't like that. So Trump is actually an opportunity for us to break the mold against the establishment and put the country in a better place. Now, what happens after Trump is unknown because he's a unique character. He's a populist. He was elected by being an outsider, even though he's a billionaire. And so it remains to be seen whether America can move forward on behalf of the people, or when Trump leaves, we revert back to the old establishment politics, which are unfair to the public.
So, Mr. Michael, what will be your short-term and long-term goals as a writer?
Um, I'm going to keep writing as long as I have interesting things to write about. I have a Substack uh, site, so I write articles on Substack every week. So that's kind of a shortened version of, or a shortened way of talking politics without writing a book. But I'm going to continue writing my books about larger issues like uh, billionaire influence because I'm trying to educate the public about these issues and hope that if they read my books, they will understand what action they need to take.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Michael. And what will be your advice for those people out there who want to write their own book?
Um, Make sure you're motivated because writing a book takes a lot of motivation and hard work. It helps if you have a structured personality because putting a book together is a very structured exercise. And if you're writing nonfiction, you have to do a lot of research. So be prepared to do research and build a structure that people are interested in reading, that make interesting reading for the reader, and pick a subject that people are interested in reading about.
Thank you for your advice, Mr. Michael. So, can grassroots movements meaningfully challenge elite power structure according to your analysis?
They can if they can come together. But the billionaires look at the public and say, well, they're divided. I mean, we're tribal. So we have a left fighting the right, and the public is not unified against changing the government. It's divided. So the billionaires are happy with that because nobody's going to challenge them if we're fighting among ourselves. So we have to get rid of tribalism. The public has to agree that the problem is the government and not the other party. And if they can do that and come together as Americans, they can influence government action.
So, Mr. Michael, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my one of my audiobooks, people audiobooks. For sure, my book 101 review, volume 3 suggestions, book 101 review, volume 2 selected, and book 101 review, volume 1 highly recommended. These are my product of my first season of Book 101 review, and of course, my self help book, Threads of Existence, Weaving a Tapestry of Life, and Stand Tall, Stand Together, Breaking the Chains of Bullying, and Life is Too Short, a journey of discovery, fulfillment, and joy. And one of my favorite climate change book, Earth Fever, The Unraveling Climate, and Our Race to Restore Balance. Please do listen to them on Audible because one of the best sellers. So, Mr. Michael Anderson, after completing your book, what key insight or action do you most hope readers will carry forward?
Um, as I said before, what the readers need to carry forward is the need to organize as a public to influence the government for change, and they have to do that at the ballot box. They have to change the people who are being elected to individuals who are responsible to them. If they can do that, they can take back control of government.
Mr. Michael C. Anderson, thank you so much for sharing America's counterfeit democracy to the world and looking forward for more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Yes, I have an author website, and it's mikeandersonsbooks.com. That's Anderson with an S and books with an S. All my books are there, so go there and learn about them.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Michael T. Anderson, because if you support him, more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Michael, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Morning, people. See you soon.